Okay, well let's start the show. It seems that everything's stable, everything's running, so we are good to go. Apologies that there probably won't be as many people in the room as we were hoping because we've put out this link and re-put it out like 3 or 4 times. So it is what it is. But okay, well the important thing is that we're here, and I think Manu's got some very interesting thing to say. And so I think Dan and myself as well, we've got some interesting takes on how we can scale Bitcoin and how stablecoins can be used potentially. And so we want to talk a little bit about that today. If just to reiterate, if you go to that link down below, you can click on it and you can type questions for the show or make comments regarding the show, and we will be there upvoting them, and that will mine cryptocurrency to your crypto account. So I'm super excited to use that technology as well. That's Leo Threads on the Leo Finance team. So yeah, please make your comments, and we'll do our best to get to them during the show, and we'll upvote them if they're interesting. Okay, let me just come to this. Okay, let's get started then. So I guess like any other typical show like this, let's get an introduction from you, Manu, and just give us a brief introduction. I mean, we met you, our team met you in Talentland, and you came highly recommended. And I heard that you had many interesting things to say. You're a very reasonable guy, very open to listen to new ideas and have discussions. So that's what we know about you. And we also know that you're interested in stable coins and how to scale Bitcoin properly. So I'm sure you have some very interesting ideas about that, and be interested in a little background on yourself before we get into the meat of this.
Yeah, sure. I'm Argentine, so actually currently living in the suburbs of Buenos Aires City. I'm a Bitcoiner. I learned about Bitcoin from a friend who is a early Bitcoiner. He discovered Bitcoin early days, like in 2009. He heard about it, and he started full life in 2011. And he's been talking to me since early days, and I started giving attention in 2016. He told me about this idea he had about building a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin, censorship resistant, like Bitcoin, but not volatile. Especially for countries like Argentina, Lebanon, like Venezuela, where these kind of stablecoins are really used in retail. Well, he had. I tried to pursue him to do other things, but he had this idea, and then I understood the importance of building this for this kind of countries. And afterwards, I understood that this is not only for retail use. This enables a lot of things to do with this. I would call it derivatives at the end. Is Bitcoin derivatives. This allow you to build Bitcoin finance on top of Bitcoin to scale the use of Bitcoin, not just for holding it as a speculative asset, and not only for the platform that it is. It is a payment platform in a way, a decentralized payment platform, and it is a speculative asset. But with stable coins, it enables to use Bitcoin in many new use cases. So that is why I think that this really scale the usage of Bitcoin. Of course, scaling the use of Bitcoin requires new technologies that Bitcoin time chain or Bitcoin layer 1 by itself doesn't support, because Satoshi mentioned didn't include that. So we built all this tech on top of other second layers. Yes, I've been doing this since we started full life I started full life in January 2018. We launched the first protocol. We launched it in December 2019. So it's more than 4 years that we've been running.
Clear. That's really cool. I mean, it's really good to speak to you because we are also involved in the idea of scaling crypto and scaling Bitcoin and getting it out to the masses so we can bank the unbanked. And we have spent a number of years also building probably similar technology to what you have. And I'm really excited to talk about how you've built what you've built and where it comes from and some of the underlying technologies and how it remains decentralized. And maybe we can also talk about what we've done and maybe there's some idea cross-pollination here on the show.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. So I guess let's start off and from our side, Dan and I have been involved in crypto for many years now, similar time to you, and we are passionate believers in free speech and freedom of expression and freedom to transact. We've become concerned with Bitcoin over the last few years because of the high fee base layer, and so it excludes most people on the planet from transacting on the base layer. And then some of the scaling solutions, we also see so many cases of KYC layer 2 scaling solutions that we're just like, well, this isn't really what we all thought Bitcoin was supposed to be. And so we also are very passionate advocates in figuring out ways to scale Bitcoin so that it can serve the masses without them having to KYC every transaction, and without losing their dignity, and maybe get them to even clear things on layer 1 in certain ways, but certainly building layer 2 solutions that allow normal people to transact in either a stable coin or Bitcoin on a layer 2 wrapping system somehow, and try to maintain the principles of decentralization, no ICO, no pre-mine, no CEO, all these types of things. We really try to stay to that, what can I say, set of principles that Satoshi also aligned with. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we come from in this conversation. And obviously we had a great time in Talentland, Mexico, put on by Jose Pimpo. And we met a number of people there and ended up coming across you yourself through that. So, yeah, it's good to meet you, Manu. And I'm looking forward to an interesting conversation here. So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about the project that you are involved in and how that works?
Well, when we started the building Manu Chain, which is the first protocol that we launched in 2019, the only way to build a stablecoin with Bitcoin as collateral was thinking about building on top of Bitcoin. Actually, when we started thinking about it, WBTC was not working yet. So even if we wanted to build it on Ethereum, it wouldn't work. And when it launched WBTC, we thought it was too centralized. At the end, WBTC is a token centralized on BitGo. So we wanted to build something that was censorship resistant and also decentralized, no? So we knew Max, which is another of co-founders, knew very well Diego Gutiérrez Saldívar. I don't know if you know Dieguito. Dieguito is very well known in Latin America, especially, but he's quite well known among Bitcoiners. So Dieguito with other Bitcoiners, especially Sergio Lerner, who is an early Bitcoin core dev, and other Bitcoiners built Rootstock, also being known as RSK. Rootstock is a second layer similar to Liquid, but it's it uses a Ethereum virtual machine, so it supports Solidity, so you can write code that is much richer, that is not supported. Or you could build this kind of contract on Bitcoin, but it will be extremely expensive to use it, and actually it's not being built for that. So the idea was from Sergio Lerner and Dieguito was to merge the security of Bitcoin with the flexibility and the expression that has Ethereum. Actually, Sergio knew very well Ethereum because he helped on the security audits. He's a specialist in security. And so they presented actually this idea to Nick Szabo. I'm sure that you know who is Nick Szabo. And the story is they told him, well, this is the white paper, please don't share it. This is confidential. And Nick tweeted about it. And immediately they receive a lot of Bitcoin to support this idea. And they launched this in January 2018. That is when we started building this protocol. And the Mayan Chain protocol is very simple how it works. It has two tokens. You mint yourself your tokens. There is no minter. It's you yourself mint your stable coins, or you can provide liquidity to the protocol. It's not intuitive or very easy to understand how it works, but it's very, very simple at the end. There is there is of course the white paper, which is quite complex, and actually the white paper needs an update version because it's not updated. But there is a deep dive blog if you go to manianchain.com, and it explains fairly simple how it works, but mainly it has two tokens. You can provide Bitcoin to the protocol, and you receive a liquidity token, which is called BitPro, and the BitPro gets more volatility. So if the price of Bitcoin goes up, the BitPro will go up higher in US dollar terms, and vice versa, because at the end it has a little bit of leverage. And the other token is the stablecoin, it's the dollar chain. So it's like two big pools on which one Bitcoiner has a censorship-resistant, trust-minimized stablecoin that you don't need to have. You don't have know your customer, because you can go from Bitcoin to RBTC, which is the Bitcoin running on this sidechain, and you can mint yourself your stablecoins. So you can use Bitcoin and mint your own stablecoins. And vice versa. Once you have the stablecoins, you want to go back to Bitcoin, you can go without no intermediary at all. The token is for providing liquidity to the protocol, and you earn some more free leverage. You don't pay for that leverage, and part of the fees of the protocols also goes to the liquidity providers. And it has also a third token, which is a governance token. It also gets most of the fees of the protocol because it needs financial incentives to provide a service. The MOC tokens holders governs the protocol, but also this protocol to run needs an oracle. So we needed incentive for having nodes that provides the prices. And this token is used also to run price feeders, to which you need to pay. You need to pay because if there is something that is too much, too complex, just interrupt me.
No. Well, hold on. Let me stop you there, because this is not too complex, and we are very much involved in this exact topic, and it is what I would call our bread and butter. And you've hit on a few things there. I want to give you some context from our point of view. We run on a cryptocurrency called Hive. It has its own stable coin. It's a layer 1 stable coin, and the protocol has 0 fees because it basically it just says instead of paying fees, you stake. So the more you stake, the more transactions you can do on the chain. And then the Hive token is driven by staking and people interacting with social media. And so the more that they interact with social media, the more they need to stake. If you're a big application, you need to stake a lot. So those people stake regardless of the price. So the network effect really drives the underlying staking in the network. The more people you have flowing through your app, the more you need to stake, and you don't really care what the price is, because if you unstake, you can't run your application. And so there's an intrinsic layer of value there to the main token. And then that token's very big in terms of market cap. And the community also mints a stable coin that's backed by that token that is very small and is maintained via various controls to keep it very, very small. And so then we have a feeless stable coin that we actually use to clear Lightning invoices. So we can blog and create content earn stable coins outside the banking system and fearlessly pay Lightning invoices with those stable coins in 3 seconds without fees and commissions and middlemen. And so we've very much involved in that world of how do you transmit stable value? Because why? Because people can't handle the stable value in Bitcoin that often. Only a certain type of person can do that. Most people can't. They need to transact in a stable value that they understand and know in the moment. And it needs to be feeless or very, 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 very low fee so that the masses can access it. And so, when you say things like, for example, something very interesting that you just said is incentivizing infrastructure. This to us is a very critical part of this whole pie. An autonomous network somewhere or an autonomous protocol that's not got a CEO or a pre-mine needs to be able to distribute tokens to people running the infrastructure in the same way that Bitcoin distributes tokens to the miners. They're the infrastructure miners, controllers of Bitcoin. We always were concerned that Bitcoin never incentivized Lightning node operators, and this doesn't. It prevents them at scale from remaining independent. And so, to hear you talking about a stablecoin system on Bitcoin, where you are, I think twice or 3 times you mentioned they're incentivizing infrastructure operators for the people running the various facets of this system. It's very interesting for me to hear that. Now, I know that you can't incentivize them from the Bitcoin protocol directly, but I'd be interested in understanding how you incentivize the infrastructure operators in your ecosystem and where that money comes from. And I understood there's some fee that the users need to pay, and then that's what's recycled back to incentivize the infrastructure operators, correct?
Yes, that is correct. We understand that Bitcoin works because it has incentives for different actors,
Right.
as you mentioned.
Right.
Bitcoin miners would not be mining Bitcoin if they don't collect the transaction fees and block the reward. It's not that they do it just because they are Teresa de Calcutta. It's because there is incentive reasons.
And you shouldn't rely on that either. You shouldn't rely on people's good-heartedness in this. It should be an incentivized infrastructure operation. I agree.
We agree on that. So at the end, there's three kind of users or stake. Some of them are the same. For example, I use the stablecoin. I hold BPRO and I hold my MOC tokens, and they are different incentives. The dollar on chain token holder is mainly someone who needs or who wants to hold a US peg coin, but he cannot access to US dollar bank accounts, like it happens in Argentina, for example. In Argentina, we cannot open a bank. You can open, but you cannot found it. Or to buy dollars is you need to buy it in the black market. So whatever, you need to hold your assets, or maybe you are a Bitcoiner, but you are speculating. You want to exchange your Bitcoin to a stable coin, and you don't trust Tether because whatever reason, you don't trust Tether because it's at the end it's a bank, and if you are in Bitcoin, you don't like banks because you don't trust the system. So so the dollar on chain user is mainly a person who wants a stablecoin that is censorship resistant and is trust minimized. That's the main incentive. It's just the use case. The other incentives are for the BPRO holders. They receive, as I mentioned, some fees and free leverage. And this is totally economic incentive for Bitcoin. The use case is for Bitcoin holders to get a reward in sats, but without giving out their private keys, because at the end you are holding a token that is protected by Bitcoin miners because it's a Bitcoin sidechain, and you hold your private keys, and nobody can go and take your money out. Okay, of course there is some more trust needed, because you need to trust that this protocol that is open source is not going to be hacked, and you need to trust that the sidechain is going to be secure. Of course, this adds more layer of in tech, so it's not so secure holding your Bitcoin layer 1 and holding BPRO, but it's a trade-off that you need to measure by yourself. And the other thing is the MOC token. The MOC token, as I mentioned, it was for governance, the main reason to build this token is that we wanted to build a protocol that can be upgradable. There is two ways to build a protocol. One way is like Uniswap, that Uniswap don't have any is not upgradable. You have different versions, and you need to migrate the liquidity between these versions, and moving the liquidity of a big DeFi protocol is very, very complex. And also to do it in a decentralized way was very, very difficult. So we decided to go on a protocol that can be upgradable. To be upgradable in a decentralized way, it needed to have a governance system. So we built, there is a lot of smart contracts that govern the protocol, and it has incentives. So most of the fees of the protocol, when you mint the stablecoin or you mint the liquidity token or different, it pays a small fees. That all these fees at the end goes to these MOC token holders. And also, as I mentioned, to work these stablecoins need an oracle that provides the price of the US dollar, because at the end, what you have is a token that the stablecoin is pegged to the US dollar, and this price needs to be fed to the protocol. And to feed this into the protocol, you need to write this price in the Rootstock blockchain, okay, in this Bitcoin sidechain. And to write in this data on a blockchain is expensive. So we needed some incentives to have these stakers writing this. And so the more
can I ask that, what would be a typical, I mean, obviously with the Bitcoin prices moving a lot, and I'm sure it got a little bit hairy for you around the halvening, where the Bitcoin prices were going up to like, the transaction prices were going up to like, $50, $60, $100 a fee. What's the percentage when the person when they convert, so they stake their Bitcoin and then they mint their stable coins, what's a typical fee what's the percentage that they lose when they do that?
Is 0.3% in total. The protocol charges 0.1, and then on top of that, there is a different dApps that if you want to build your own dApp, you can provide that. And that is, you have the idea of the protocol is that as much user interfaces exist, the better. Okay, so there is a organization that is providing one dApp, but actually there is already two wallets that are integrating the protocol natively and charging on top of the base fee some other fees. So in total, right now is 0.3%. Okay.
And is that affected? Is that affected by the Bitcoin fees? Does it vary?
Well, no. You have actually two fees. One fee is just paying the smart contract. The smart contract charges some fees, and that is related with the Bitcoin price, because this goes to the Bitcoin miners. As I mentioned, this is being built in a Bitcoin second layer. So to execute any contract on top of Rootstock, you need to pay a fee, and this fee goes to the Bitcoin miner. It's a very interesting blockchain, this one, because as I mentioned, this is a sidechain. It uses a concept which is called merge mining. So the Bitcoin miner don't need to pay anything. They don't need to provide extra hash power. And when they are hashing while they are providing hash power to the Bitcoin main chain, they are providing this hash power to the second layer, and they are getting the fees from the second layer. So at the end, this second layer works like subsidizing the main the time chain, we could say, and vice versa. The time chain is subsidizing the second layer. Yes, this is something a great invention from Sergio Lerner, as I mentioned before.
How often does it clear to the Bitcoin layer?
Well, actually, it doesn't need to clear. It could be indefinitely. What you do is The Rootstock has two main mechanisms. One is, as I mentioned before, this merge mining. This merge mining is actually done each 20 seconds. Okay, so in each second, it's a new block comes. But the important thing is that there is a peg between what we call a POPEG, between the Bitcoin on layer 1 and these Bitcoins in this sidechain. And there is a way to lock your Bitcoins on layer 1, and this unlocks RBTCs on this second layer, and you can do the payout. This is the pay-in is locking in the main chain. But it's two different blockchains. So you can write and you can do all the transactions that you want on this second layer. And the miners will charge a fee for that, but these don't need to settle on the main chain. The only thing that needs to settle in the main chain is if you want to pay out your Bitcoins, your smart Bitcoins, you want to pay out because you want to go again to the main chain. And this is actually a very good question, because a lot of people tell me, oh, okay, but because it's costly to go to do the payout. But in reality, for example, I've been using this for more than 4 years, and I have more Bitcoins in the sidechain than on main chain. And I've been using it for, I don't care, because if you have your stablecoin, you have your DeFi tokens, you can do lending, you can do borrowing, you can do trading, whatever. It's at the end, it's doing DeFi on Bitcoin, and it's scaling the use case.
We actually believe that we need. I mean, you've been on this for 4 years already, but we need to get as much Bitcoin off the main layer and onto genuinely decentralized layer 2s that allow you to transact with low fees or zero fees as possible. Otherwise, the thing fails, or at least it doesn't fail, but it doesn't provide the digital freedom that we hoped it would.
Well, we agree on that. I think a lot of DeFi being done on Ethereum with Bitcoin, but in not such a trust minimized way, because as I mentioned, all WBTC, which are, the last time I checked it was like 130,000 Bitcoins were on WBTC. And the main use case for that is just providing liquidity to taking loans on your Bitcoins. And that's a perfect use case. But of course, most of that is being done by venture capital and big funds. The retail use case is small. Actually, if you talk with people on Ethereum, the real users, they will tell you that they are just holding Bitcoin for the long term, and they are doing DeFi with Ethereum. Or other networks. And yes, the main reason to build Rootstock, when you talk with the founders, is to enable all these use cases, but based on Bitcoin. So right now, if you go to Rootstock, you can mint your own stablecoin fully backed by Bitcoin. You can have derivatives in Bitcoin. You can make a loan with Bitcoin and take a stablecoin in Bitcoin. You can do leverage operations. So, and actually now Uniswap had deployed on top of Rootstock. So this is really, I think this might not be the case, but I think one of these narratives that we call in crypto and Bitcoin world, one of the narratives that can come is to build DeFi on top of Bitcoin in this cycle. I don't know. I really don't know if this is going to catch, but I see that right now, after 4 years, as I mentioned, we were the first protocol to build DeFi on top of Rootstock. Maybe these times, all the blocks that was needed, as I mentioned, borrowing, lending, and there is some special infrastructure pieces that was needed. For example, as I mentioned, having Uniswap here is really important. Now, many atomic swaps that enable to go back and forth from different networks. have integrated Pustock. So there's a lot of new pieces that are now in place that 2-3 years ago or 1 year ago, actually, some of these atomic swap been implemented in the last 10 weeks. So are just starting to be bootstrapped, and are really growing.
That's really cool. I mean, it sounds really cool so far. It's very, very similarly aligned to what we're doing as well. And I don't want it's friendly competition is good, and I think there's lots that we can glean from each other. One of the things that I wanted to ask was, when you put your Bitcoin into the protocol, who are you trusting when you stake your Bitcoin?
Well, your Bitcoin first, you are locking on layer 1. Okay, you are doing the pay-in, and then when you use the protocol, the Money on Chain protocol, you use it with RPTC. So the first thing that you need to trust is this mechanism, which is called POPEG. The POPEG is a mechanism in which there is a multi-signature wallet, but this multi-signature wallet can only actually it's not needed. It's a transaction that it occurs on the pay-in, is automatic. On the payout, it needs to have this different from a lot of very well-known entities. And that is the only centralization point. But two important things about that. First, this mechanism, the signatures cannot steal the money. So they can only sign this transaction, but they cannot.
They can lock it, but they can't take it. So they can only send it back. So, they can only send it back to the depositor.
Yes, and the main reason is because maybe you have heard about drive chain.
Yeah.
If drive chain is the drive chain BIP is the BIP 300 and BIP 301 is or some new implementation of that is allowed, then we could have this completely decentralized, trustless mechanism. But right now, the payout has this like they sign is we call it pegnatories. So they sign, but they cannot steal beacons, and there is no incentive for them to steal because they are paid. When they sign, they get money. So there is an incentive, an economic incentive for them to sign these transactions.
To send it back.
Yes, and actually, as I mentioned, there is no incentive for them, and are very, very well-known actors. It's all public, so you can check. I don't know if you want, I can check. I don't remember the names.
Right? What we would propose for that, so what we, because we have a similar system to get Bitcoin wrapped onto the layer 2, which is similar to yours. We recommend that our bridge providers, they provide stable coins as collateral twice the amount they can bring through on their bridge. So there's not a multi-sig, but it's individual people that you send the Bitcoin to, and there's a smart contract that holds stable coins, and those stable coins have to be maintained at twice the value of Bitcoin, otherwise the bridge remains closed if it goes below twice the value. And so if any of the Bitcoin ever goes missing from that account, then the stable coins get sent to your account as a collateral. So basically, if the bridge operators are saying, hey, here's my reputation, we're also operating a bridge, but also we're putting this many stable coins into a collateral account, and if we mess around with your Bitcoins, then the collateral account will automatically send those stable coins to you as collateral.
Yes, that's very important if these entities has any access to that money. In this case, I don't know, the organization providing the signature are, I don't know, Luxor, for example, Sapo, and other kind of really high-profile organization, and they have no incentive at all because they cannot steal their Bitcoin at all. So in case this for example, the risk will be, I don't know, the US government going against this organization and trying to shut down this bridge. And one of the things that the founders of Rostock thought about is geographically completely diverse. It's not only based in United States. Actually, most of the organizations are not in United States because
completely agree, completely understood.
It's not the freedom state that most people think it is, and there is fallback mechanism in case there is any problem with this bridge. The really good news is that there is maybe you have heard about BitPM, and actually yesterday in BTC++, which is one of the most well-known Bitcoin hardcore conferences, Sergio Lerner, one of the founders of Rostock, presented a new proposal to have this completely trustless in a much simpler way than doing than needing a hard fork that is. I think it's a soft fork, but it's I don't know why, but it been really resisted the BIP 300.
Yeah, we just think that for that part of the mechanism, it's good to have multiple individuals, not multi-sigs, individual people that are able to receive Bitcoin into their accounts, but they're only allowed to receive it if they've posted collateral into the system that they put at risk. So they're saying, okay, I've put this at risk. You can send half that amount to me, and I'll look after it. And if I move it anywhere without your permission, automatically the stablecoins will go to your account to pay you out. And so they're actually risking if they do anything outside of moving the Bitcoins back to the account they were supposed to move them to. But these are just different ways to tackle this problem. And I'll be very interested in seeing this proposal that you've just mentioned, because I'm also interested in integrating it into what we're doing. But yeah, that's a cool part of it. But the point is that that is one of the points of failure, right? It's like there's an organization that's registered somewhere that could be sanctioned in some way. But again, I'm not saying that's a big risk. I think it's very interesting, and I like the model that you're using. Particularly having it outside the USA is a big deal. But yeah, and it clearly works.
I'm curious, the multi-sig are you talking about? So I'm a user. I want to interact with DeFi. I have my own self-custody wallet. Is that multi-sig on the layer 1 of Bitcoin? So basically I'm sending it to another Bitcoin address on the layer 1, and then the keys are multi-sigged out to trusted individuals. Is that correct?
No, it's not a multi-sig that have any control on the Bitcoins. It's only sign the payout, but it's not that they can move the Bitcoin at all. It's only to sign this transaction that is, if you have RBTC and you want to exchange your RBTC to Bitcoin, the RBTC is this token that runs on this Bitcoin sidechain, and you want to go back to Bitcoin, you can do it centralized in a centralized way. There is many ways on which you can exchange. But if you want to use the trust minimized way, you can send it. You can sign a Rostock transaction, and this makes at the end this makes a multi-sig transaction that liberates these Bitcoins and send it to your Bitcoin address. Okay, but the only thing that they can do is they can read this transaction on Rostock, and they can, when they sign this multi-sig. I think it's 5 of 9. This liberates, and they get a fee for that. So there is an incentive for them to sign this transaction, but there is no incentive. Actually, they cannot steal the Bitcoins at all. There is no incentive for them not to sign this. Again,
I think one of the things that I'm proposing.
I wanted to do a quick question, Matt, on the same topic.
Well, can we just stay on that point of the multi-sig?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
All right.
Yeah. So about the multi-sig, when you're talking about where it's at, you say there's governance on the chain to improve or update smart contracts. Can that in any way affect? So if, let's say, in a hypothetical situation, governance was taken over and they wanted to steal the money, would there be any kind of upgrades they could do and pass them through in that hypothetical situation? I know highly unlikely, but let's talk worst case scenario.
Again, I when I talk about a governance token, it was in for Money on Chain. Money on Chain is one of the protocols running on top of Rootstock. Rootstock is a second layer, a Bitcoin second layer. It doesn't have a governance token, and Money on Chain is a third layer. So it's like Uniswap, like Compound, like MakerDAO, whatever, and it has its own governance system. So if you are holding RBTC, there is no way that someone with a governance token in Money on Chain could put your RBTC in risk. It could be put in risk if you are holding a token that belongs to Money on Chain. So, for example, if you are holding the stablecoin from Money on Chain and all the MOC token holders sign a transaction to steal the money from the RBTC from the dollar on chain holders, well, of course, they govern the protocol, so they can collectively do it. But this needs a lot of time to be approved, and there is way for people to majorities and minorities to vote against malicious attacks. So that's part of using a DeFi protocol that has governance. So it depends what you're talking about. If you are talking about RBTC, no, there is no governance system on which someone can steal your Bitcoin. The only risk that exists is that all these organizations that are signing this transaction fail for whatever reason, and there is several mechanisms that are in place, for example, to replace these signatures with other signatories, I would say. But this is like second layer. Third layer is Money on Chain and other protocols.
I'd like to suggest maybe that the people who are controlling this multi-sig or this account, I can't quite get my head around it. But I'm going to assume, give the benefit of the doubt, there's a reasonable level of trust there. I would propose that if there was a reasonable level of trust in reality, they would be happy to stake some collateral somewhere and put it at risk and say, we've got, I don't know, $10 million of Bitcoin in this account or these accounts. And we're putting $20 million of collateral. And if that Bitcoin moves without permission, it's that $20 million getting paid out to the stakers, to the people who are, to the users. You know, that would make me feel a lot more secure. And that's certainly the way I think that DeFi should be done on these bridges a bit more. And you could build a smart contract that could operate to make that happen. You know, there's just a proposal from me. It's certainly the way we would operate.
I think it could be. I'm as anyone, as you are a Bitcoiner, so you can participate and make proposals. It's called. I think it's RIP. It's Rootstock improved proposals. I think so. You can propose. It's open source software Rootstock.
Cool.
So it doesn't belong to anyone. There is an organization providing support for that, which is Rootstock Labs. Like Blockstream provides support to Liquid or to Bitcoin. And so you can propose, and I think I really not so focused on that because just building a stablecoin is really tough. But there is a lot of people that been working on this kind of incentives on the network incentive, on the sidechain incentives. I think it's really interesting what you are saying. I think the only thing is if I would put my Bitcoins there, I will want to have an incentive for that, for doing that. So again, at the end is okay. So right now, these people that are running this, it's called HSM. It's not a common wallet. It's what is called hardware security models. It's not like a Trezor. It's like a Trezor with a computer. So the people running this get a very small fees on each payout, up to my understanding. So they have an incentive, but they don't need to provide collateral or whatever. So the economic incentive is small because the amount of money that they need to provide is also small. If you need to provide your bitcoins as collateral, well, I imagine that these people will want to have a bigger incentive. So I don't know. The founder of Rostock and the people that built this tech thought that was not needed. And actually, right now it's like, I think it's 3,000 bitcoins on this network. And that is not the total value lock, but because on top of that, you can build more DeFi protocols. So the economic value running on top of Rostock is much higher right now.
Clear. I'd like to shift to the governance of this layer too. Are there any other questions regarding this, Don?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I get what it is. You know, I see the usefulness of it. If you need a stable coin outside of the banking system, this is the way to do it. I don't know what the fees are and how high those are. If there's fees to transact with the stable coin once you're on that layer. Also, dexes are very intensive. So like there's going to be need to be a lot of incentive there for these DEX operators to actually operate. Smart contracts are also very expensive to use, especially if you're storing the data and doing the computation all at once. So like you're being a data availability layer and you're doing computation at the same time. That makes things incredibly difficult. But it's interesting. I think that there's ways to look at the tech, look at what we're building, and sort of see what we can learn from each other, because the one thing you do have is experience on building on the Bitcoin protocol and how these things work. And what's really cool is you're actually like you're doing something about it. Like you see the problem, you see the need, and you're like, well, this is a way to do it. And you know, regardless, it sounds like you're doing it in a very freedom oriented way. You're not trying to create some business model or be a company. So either way, like the effort's in the right area, and I think that it's, you know, I mean, if you're thinking about this for however long you've been building it, you obviously have some foresight as well. But yeah, everything needs governance. Everything's going to have holes. You can always focus on the holes of something because nothing is perfect. But in practice, if it's actually working, but yeah, obviously the fees are going to be an issue for most people. I see a use case for people who have Bitcoin and they need to get into stables outside of the banking system, and they don't want to trust Tether or whatever. You know, I tend to believe, you know, the governance on Ethereum, etc., are centralized. So I mean, you know, a lot of hardcore Bitcoiners probably don't want to trust something like Solana or Ethereum if they don't have to. So yeah. Also, you know, we deal with stablecoin and the underlying value. When you deposit the Bitcoin, what happens if the Bitcoin crashes in price? Is there some kind of haircut rule or a cutoff? So if I have
How do you protect the stablecoin?
if I have one Bitcoin, $60,000, let's say, and I want how much stablecoin can I mint from that Bitcoin if I deposit it? Would it be like 60,000, or are we talking 30,000 to leave some leverage for volatility? What kind of parameters are there? Those would be my final questions on those.
Well, right now, if you want to mint these stablecoins, as you mentioned, there is complex smart contracts that need to be in place. So the idea is that you will not be minting and redeeming this token for small amounts. It doesn't make sense. you will be exchanging that in different platforms. But if you want to mint, it costs like $2 now in this Bitcoin at the end. It's smart Bitcoin discharge, and that this goes to the miners. And on top of that, it's 0.3%. That is how much it costs minting or redeeming. Paying right now on Rootstock, it costs like 8 cents of a dollar a transaction on Rootstock, transferring any kind of token. So of course, also a stablecoin like dollar and chain is the same. So it costs moving money now on Rootstock, moving bitcoins or moving stablecoin cost 7 cents of a dollar, and could be $1 million that you are moving. And actually, it's really strange that a lot of Bitcoiners are not using Rootstock when they want to move a big amount of Bitcoin. Because if you want to move a big amount of Bitcoin on layer one, it's expensive sometimes. Normally, it's much more expensive than 7 cents of a dollar, and it takes like 10 to 40 minutes or 1 hour. And in Rootstock, it takes 10 seconds to 30 seconds, and it costs 7 cents. So it's like a different option. And if you want to use Lightning, it's instant. But if you want to move one Bitcoin in Lightning, channels are not optimized for that. It's not. Of course, you can use centralized Lightning nodes, but that's not the idea. If you are moving a lot of money, you will try to avoid using centralized solutions. So I think Lightning Network is more focused for micropayments, and I hope in the future, actually there is a project which is called Taro. Well, the name now is different because there was an issue between Lightning Labs and Giacomo Succo. But anyway, the original name was Taro, and it was a proposal to port stablecoins on top of Bitcoin. There is actually several proposals for that. And we expect that these 7 cents of a dollar, which is for microtransactions, if you are paying a coffee, paying 7 cents of a dollar doesn't make sense. But so for microtransaction, we hope that Lightning Network will support stablecoins, not only from Rootstock, from any other stablecoin that people want to use. So you will have stablecoin on top of Lightning. That would be really interesting to see. I think it's coming in maybe next year. I was hoping that it was coming this year, but I don't see any proof of that yet.
So tell me what does that look like to you? A stablecoin on top of Lightning. How's that built?
I'm not. That is what Lightning Labs is building. It's tough. Actually, there is some stuff running on testnet, on Lightning Network on testnet. If you want, there is a group and there is community calls each 3 months, more or less 2 months. So I'm not the tech guy, but I can share you.
So effectively, it would be if you're running a Lightning node, you would also be running this stablecoin ecosystem.
From what I understand, the Taro proposal is there will be the on-off ramp, or there will be. I cannot explain it technically right now. Yes, it's tough.
It's something like that, though.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I understand that there will be a big liquidity pool that is mainly will be used Bitcoin to do the exchanges, but in the last mile, stablecoin will be used. So the idea is at the end to use all the Bitcoin liquidity that is running on top of Lightning Network to enable stablecoin transactions. And in the last mile, there will be liquidity providers to do the last mile transaction. That is my very briefly understanding of how Taro works. But really, this is like, for me, it's like going to Mars.
It's a big danger because in practice, when you look at that in theory, in practice, it leads directly to centralized stablecoins. because the Lightning Network is supposed to be used for micropayments, so you can't incentivize via fees. And if you can't incentivize via fees, you need to incentivize some sort of inflation. You don't have that on Lightning Network. Lightning Network nodes are incentivized by the Bitcoin's main layer. So now your only incentive is to be like a big bank that provides the liquidity for KYC. That's their incentive. They can create a business model around that. Other than that, to actually, because one thing that would be great, because I'm actually pro Lightning Network for reasons that are unorthodox, but I think it has a lot of useful use cases for decentralized communities. Um, One of the things that you would, if you're looking at Lightning Network, is being able to safely hold more and more in each Lightning Network node. I believe that's absolutely coming. I think institutions are going to figure that out before normal people do, because they have the incentives to safely secure the funds. But yeah, getting as much Bitcoin onto Lightning Network as possible, and then figuring out how to incentivize a stable coin. There's only a few ways to do it, in my opinion. And one of them does involve creating outside value that is attached to the Lightning Network. So a stable coin that can interact with Lightning Network, that has all the same principles of self custody and all of that, but to actually create a Bitcoin backed stable coin on the Lightning Network, or a dollar backed stable coin on the Lightning Network, is going to be very difficult to do in practice, to make it censorship resistant without the
Yeah,
fees or
sure.
the inflation. So
Actually, there was an initiative. I met Stark's Elizabeth Stark in a couple of years ago, and there is an initiative to build a bridge between Rootstock and Lightning Network to bring these stablecoins in a censorship resistant, trustless, or trust minimized way. So right now, most of these Taproot assets is the name of the code name of this project. Is of course, as Tether has most liquidity in stablecoins, so Tether is working. Actually, they are working in their own project to bring Tether to Lightning. But there is an initiative to bring censorship resistant stablecoins, trust minimized stablecoins to Lightning, and to do it in a trust minimized way. And yes, of course, if you have a centralized asset running on top of Lightning Network, it is like having centralized asset running on whatever. At the end, you need to trust the issuer. And yes, we don't trust the issuer.
That's well. What you just said is very interesting, because I would say that the stablecoin that we use, HBD, meets those criteria in terms of allowing it to link in and integrate with the Lightning Network. We already use it to pay thousands of people across the world. I say we don't. The protocol pays them out for blogging, and then they use that to pay for things. And there's a system called V4V app, V4V.app, and it allows you to pay with HBD stablecoin that you've mined from blogging and pay Lightning invoices. So you can go anywhere that accepts Lightning, you can pay this, and then people blog themselves doing that, and they make their money back from the inflation of the protocol that's minting the stablecoin. So this has helped thousands of people in Venezuela, for example, where the currency is all over the place, and these people can just mint stablecoins from blogging, and then go spend it and blog the fact that they're blogging and keep minting more stablecoins. So this is something that's very interesting to me. I feel like that could plug into Lightning quite nicely. Again, there's no CEO, no pre-mine or anything like that behind the protocol. So we're big advocates of that type of system. I'd like to move on to the governance of your system here. I think is quite interesting. So am I right in saying there's a layer 2 token system, and then it's distributed to value creators in the ecosystem? How does the distribution of that token work, and is it used for governance or?
Well, as I mentioned, there is 3 tokens in Manual Chain Protocol: the stablecoin, the BPRO, that is the liquidity token for Bitcoin holders that provide their Bitcoins that at the end gives the stability to the dollar on chain token holders. And the third is a governance token. The governance token takes the fees from the users. When I mentioned that there is 2 fees when you mint dollar on chain or you redeem this token. one fee goes to the Bitcoin miner that is providing the security of the sidechain, and the other fee goes to the MOC token holder. Most of the fee, a portion of that goes to the liquidity provider. But so most of the fees goes there, and the other fees that they get is the liquidity providers pays a small fee to the governance token. That is the two fees that they get, and with that they have enough economic incentives to run oracles, and these oracles provides the price to the protocol. So it's that it's not the distribution of this token being a portion was assigned to people that provide Bitcoin to develop this, because to develop any protocol, you need to write code and you need to pay the coders. So initially, when we launched this project, it was completely centralized. It was not community built, whatever. No, there was an organization building this protocol with some incentives, and they part of this organization got part of these governance tokens. Then investors on this protocol got part of these tokens, and then like 40% of this token being distributed to the holders of this governance token. That is, you can buy it in a decentralized way in decentralized exchanges, and also to the liquidity providers. The liquidity providers, besides getting this free leverage and a portion of the fees that is charged in the protocol, there is like a liquidity mining. It's not like a liquidity. There is a liquidity mining program on which these liquidity providers receive part of the governance token. So that's the way how this token being distributed.
And then that token, is it a one token, one vote system?
Yes, if one token, one vote is 2010 million tokens. And the governance is mainly that you need to make a proposal. You need to have like 1% of the total supply, and then there is any proposal is voted by majority, but there is a 30%. If 30% of the token vote against or veto a proposal, is not passed. And main idea about the governance for you, because a lot of people say, okay, so there is not so many proposals. The idea of a stablecoin protocol that's been thought to run hundreds of millions. Already there is more than 100 million running on this protocol. So we don't want to change things all the time. We want this to be very stable, not to have too many changes. Because if you are having a smart contract that is holding 5,000 million or 100,000 million dollars, you don't want to have a lot of changes. Our main priority when we thought about building this protocol is to have the highest level of security as possible. So the idea, yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
No.
I wanted to ask, is there any way, all this is open source technology, right?
Yeah.
So would there be any way, for example, to copy the whole system and zero the balances of the initial ICO holders on the new system? So copy it, run it, and then just release a new system without the ICO holders or the founders in?
Yes, can we do it? The main question will be who will have the incentive to run an oracle if there is no money involved. Who will mine and you need to bootstrap and also there is the protocol is open source, but there is but it has a license. Anyone can use it, but not for commercial use. So if you are going to make money with this, there is an organization that could have a legal or whatever. But at the end, what we really think is if you make that, and it is possible at the end, and we don't care if that happens. That would be good for Bitcoin at the end. And we are Bitcoiners, and we build this. When we started, the founder of this started to build this, we thought that this was important for humanity. Besides that, we also need, and this is important, there is some people that put their Bitcoin, their money, to develop this. So it makes sense the same way as the Bitcoin miners. If you are providing capital, it is reasonable that you will get some economic incentive for doing that. But anyway, yes, it is open source. You can copy, and if you do it, well, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. It's an interesting debate in the industry because we think there's other ways to do this, and maybe at the time that it was built, the technology wasn't there. But things like, for example, what we propose is if you can get a decentralized community to vote for a proposal and release initial funding from a DAO, and then there's no strings attached, but the system that's being built benefits the community. So, for example, what you're building definitely benefits Bitcoiners. So we would argue that Bitcoiners shouldn't have any return because they need to fund this technology to make Bitcoin better in the first place, and it needs to scale. And then the DAO that's created from that can pay the people that are working on the project. And so you wouldn't need any centralized funding, and therefore you wouldn't need an ICO and a pre-mine. I mean, obviously everyone's going to do it differently. I'm not saying that you have to do it one way or the other. I just feel like one's more because what you end up with at the end of it is you end up with several centralized parties that, like you say, there's a license there, they have some control, so they can also be manipulated. And the reason that I'm hot on this topic is because it happened to us on the chain that we used to run. We had what we called a ninja mine, which was like a centralized pre-mine. One account was a little bit bigger than the others, and it got over-the-counter purchased by Justin Sun, who then attacked the chain and tried to destroy the community. Eventually, we forked away from him by zeroing his balance on the new chain, which is why I asked the question I asked. And now the community you can't shut the community down because there isn't a CEO, there isn't a company behind it, there isn't a centralized entity behind it. And I feel like that lesson should be taken forward in other protocols.
Yeah, sure. In the case of Manu Chain, it is decentralized. There is an organization providing support, but the protocol is we don't control the protocol. I'm, as a founder, I don't have control on the protocol. If we all the founders and the entity that is providing support want to collude to have control of the protocol, we don't have enough token for that. And we thought about that when we're building this. And the protocol is decentralized in that way. So yes, there is an organization. At the end, what we want in the long term is to close this organization. The organization, how it works, it is running 15% of the MOC tokens are in a wallet that this organization gets the profits of running a node, but they cannot sell, for example, the tokens. It's like these are governed by the rest, the 85% of the MOC token holders. So I'm not saying that this is the best way to do it. I'm just saying this is the governance way that we found to build this. And up to now, after 4 years, this is running and this is working, and people are holding it, and the token is the governance token has an economic incentive to hold it, and there is $100 million in this protocol. So it's yes, we are happy on that.
Yeah, when you're dealing with heavy infrastructure, you're dealing with things that are going to cost a lot of money. You're dealing with liquidity. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to have what I would call decentralized governance on that. You can have multiple VC parties that would have to align, meaning they wouldn't do one thing to fuck over the other, or what's bad for business, I would say. Of course, you have the nation state attacks you have to worry about, but it seems more like filling a middle service for people who want a stable coin outside the banking system. but yeah, there's going to be, there's obviously going to be some attack vectors with, because it's not just the current allocation, it's the ability to buy future allocation and the infrastructure that you're providing for something more governance based. If you want large community participation, you're going to need very lightweight nodes. You're going to need to niche these things out. Um, for example, with Hive, you just have text. You just store text. We believe, the basis of. If you ask anyone how do you preserve free speech on the internet, the first thing is you would store text, right? And you'd find the ability to distribute that text and incentivize. Um, Something like that can spread and get very large community network effect. But I can see where you would struggle with that because like you need people with lots of money to be put up liquidity, and then you have the high fees, and then you have the heavy infrastructure. Um, but yeah, as long as
Yes,
it's open source, and you have a community around it, you can always fork if there's ever a problem. But community's got to
yes.
be ready for that.
Again, if there is any problem with this protocol in a censorship way or whatever, it can always be forked and be built by a cyberpunk way, and that is one of the reasons why it is completely open source. And maybe in the future we will have different protocol. One is this protocol, and then one is a fork, community built, and with lower fees. I'm not imagining without fees because, as I mentioned, you need someone to provide to run oracles. So there is need to charge fees because it needs that. We would love, for example, right now it's only 10 nodes that are allowed because signing this Oracle transaction is costly, and is not to coordinate more than 10 nodes with current technology is too complex, but we expect to increase that. So yes, of course, as I mentioned before, when we started, this was completely centralized, and we are trying to build this as much decentralized as possible. Actually, what we think is this is the most decentralized that we can build with current technology, and we would love to make it even more decentralized.
You know what's really cool? You know what's really cool? I like this because a lot of projects, they always say, "Trust us, we're decentralizing. Trust us." Oh, don't worry, we're going to decentralize. There's this plan, and then you check back a few years later, and they're no more decentralized than they were. Whereas you're one of the only examples I can see in crypto that actually started centralized, and you've slowly but surely become more decentralized over time, and you're moving on a path to become even more decentralized, which is really cool to see. You should probably write a book on that alone because some people need to learn it.
Yeah, a lot of this being built by. I always say that this is not like I'm not the brain behind that. This is the brain behind that is Max Carcusa, who is another co-founder. And Max, the thing with Max is he been in Bitcoin, like I mentioned. He discovered Bitcoin in 2009. He discarded because he thought that the blockchain was amazing, but that having a digital token in a blockchain having value was something stupid. But when in 2011 he saw that this was being used to buy things in the dark web, and he said, "Oh well, maybe there is something interesting here." But he been shitcoining and he been invested in several shitcoin project and DeFi project and whatever. And there's been a lot of work on building this, a lot of work. When I mention this governance, it's not that we work with several organizations, and yes, this was not open community and whoever wants to provide an improvement. No, it was not one like that. It was much more close built, but it was built with, I think, with a lot of people. It's not that just
Sure,
3-4
sure.
people. It's more than 100 people work on building this.
Can I ask as well, is the governance token capped or is it an inflationary token? Because we believe that you can have zero fees on an inflationary token.
No, it's capped. It's not inflationary.
That's why you need fees.
Could be changed, but actually right now it is inflationary because there is an initial supply and then there is an incentive. There is a staking rewards. So there is a portion, as I mentioned, 60% of the token being issued initially, and then 40% are being issued actually forever. There is like the Bitcoin stuff, like 3% of the remnant. So right now, I think it's the total amount of token that being issued is 180 millions, and there is 30 million that's going to be issued at 3% of the remaining each month. So like forever.
That's cool. I mean, our argument is that you can, for infrastructure like stable coins, you could also apply a system where you have zero fees, and you need to think about that because. No, I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying if you're trying to build a protocol like this, it needs to be considered because we need to figure out a way to serve the masses. We need to figure out a way to give the masses a zero fee stablecoin so that they can transact daily, or a very, very low fee stablecoin. And the way you do that is by having the governance with inflation over time.
Well, right now, minting and redeeming has fees, but if you want to transfer value in a stablecoin, you don't need to pay a fee to the protocol. Actually, if I have a dollar on chain, I send it to you. I only need to pay the Bitcoin miner for the transaction that is paid in the protocol. Don't get anything for transactions. It's only for minting and redeeming, and actually we don't want people to be minting and redeeming all the time.
Sure.
Because for several reasons.
That makes sense.
So, and actually, right now, if someone has dollar on chain, can redeem it at any moment. But in the original idea, the original protocol was only each month.
Right,
it was a limit, and actually, it's not good. We don't think it's good, but. Right now, for example, I need to mention, we don't control that. If we don't, for example, you are saying me, you should think about that. You can propose.
Right.
You can propose. It's a decentralized governance protocol.
It's very interesting. Yeah. And then, so then if I wanted to send, I think we mentioned it before, but just so I clarify, if I wanted to send stable coins from me to Dan or from me to you, how much would that cost? If, like you said, $1 million would cost 7 cents. Is that
7 cents of a dollar? Yes.
Right.
1 million or $1. It's
so it's practically
the cost
zero.
Of transaction. Yes, it's the cost of transaction on this Bitcoin second layer.
Yes.
And if Bitcoin, if this second layer is very successful, like Ethereum, for example, or whatever, of course, this cost is going because blockchain don't scale. So there is already some roll-ups of this, of proof stock, the same way that you have roll-ups on Ethereum, because this is compatible to Ethereum. So you can build roll-ups. And as I mentioned before, for me, the way to scale the use of stablecoins is on top of Lightning. If you want to pay a coffee or whatever, you will use. Actually, I use most of the time. I use Lightning because it's nearly for free that you transact on Lightning.
I want to drop you a link. I want to drop you a link of something maybe after the show. We'll talk where if you're buying coffees with Lightning, if you use a system called Spend HBD, you can mine more crypto as you spend. You just have to document it. You just have to document the fact that you're spending and you're paying Lightning invoices. So I'll drop you something after the show. It's nice because it's like there's a little community behind it, and they're slowly but surely growing. And it's like there's an incentive system from the inflation of the side chain to spend Lightning, basically. So it's quite interesting. We haven't really got time to go into it here, but it's an interesting thing. So last couple of questions on this. One is how can you earn? Is there a way to earn the stablecoin, or is it only is DeFi the only way that you can earn the stablecoin from liquidity pool on this? Can you do something to earn the stablecoin, for example, instead of staking Bitcoin?
You can put it in a there is a fork of Compound, which is called Tropicus, that is running on top of and you can stake your dollar on chain, and you will get a fee on that is being paid by borrowers. So you can lend your dollar on chain, and you get a fee on that. But there's no one is paying just for free. There is an incentive because you are providing liquidity for someone to borrow this.
Because one of the things that you can
money markets.
Yeah, sure. Because one of the things that you could do, and of course, maybe we propose this to the community as well, I don't know. But one of the things that's proven that works, as long as you keep the debt really, really small, you can create an inflation on the stablecoin that you can distribute to people in the ecosystem. And as long as that stablecoin stays, that debt-based stablecoin stays very, very small in comparison to the collateral in the system, it works. So you could say, like take a 10% debt limit, and then you could create 10% market cap of new stablecoins and distribute those to the users in terms of like an inflationary stablecoin every month. So that's something that I've seen work. But of course, I know on the Bitcoin side, it's very much like we're not doing that. We're going to go for a purely fully backed.
Yes, the thing is, these stablecoins are fully backed by Bitcoin. So if there is no way to mint this dollar on chain.
Sure.
The only way to mint this dollar on chain is to provide Bitcoin to the protocol. You need to send Bitcoin to the protocol, and you get the stable. So you send $100 in Bitcoin, and you get $100 of dollar on chain. And whatever the price, you send back your dollar on chain, and you get $100 in Bitcoin at the price of Bitcoin at that moment.
Sure.
So yes, this is a really super conservative protocol, boring protocol, I would say. But yeah. And the other way to make money is providing in liquidity pools, for example. There's several ways to make money, but there is, as I mentioned before, Uniswap is deployed on Rootstock now. So, for example, now there's an interesting pool to provide RUSDT and dollar on chain. There is a pool to exchange these tokens, and currently it was like 20% API on this pool because it was heavily used. That's the main reason, and because of the liquidity was low and heavily used, and so liquidity provider are getting money. So there is always.
This makes me wonder. It might be an interesting use case of this system to use it as the bridge to exit to other chains. I don't even mean exit, because we need to wrap Bitcoin onto our chain, because our chain's a feeless chain, right? So we're building layer 2 smart contracts. So we don't have a layer 1 smart contract system. We're exactly aligned with you on that. I don't think there's any reason to have layer 1 smart contracts. You should have layer 2, layer 3 smart contracts. And if it's on a feeless base layer, you can clear instantly. So you don't need to trust the smart contract operators, whereas everyone else is operating on feed blockchains with the smart contracts on layer 1. Where everyone has to burden the success of one of the smart contracts, right? And so we're coming from this point of view, and what we're trying to do is figure out ways to get Bitcoin wrapped. We have our own wrapping mechanism, but maybe this is a way we can do it, where we can get into your token and then come out through a DeFi protocol onto our side, where we can then apply our smart contracts with feeless transactions to it on the base layer, at least. So then it's like, well, maybe our BTC or our USD becomes some kind of gateway for other protocols to tap into to get liquidity in and out of Bitcoin in that way.
Well, right now it's like that was one of the pieces that really was missing for several years. That I'm like super happy and super bullish.
I know the feeling.
That's been integrated. Is I don't know if you know Routed Protocol, Symbiosis, and now there is like 4 protocols, different atomic swap protocol that now if you have USDT on whatever chain, actually in Tether or in Tron or in in Ethereum or whatever, and you want to exchange it for dollar on chain in one step, you can click it and exchange it. And that is that actually what allows is to bring liquidity to Roostok. Roostok was like an amazing network that was closed for using. Only way to use Roostok was to do PowPeg, and it takes like 17 hours one way or 36 hours the other way. It was like super secure, super great, but nobody was using it.
Yeah, it's faster to mail the keys.
Yeah. No, actually, there was some. There was another mechanism was fast BTC, but fast BTC was a centralized mechanism to do the change, but it was up to 3 Bitcoins. So really, if you are, imagine if you are Binance or if you are a big fund and you are going to adopt this, you are not going to trade 3 Bitcoins, and you are not going to wait one day to do anything, not in this world. So now all this infrastructure that is needed for all this tech to grow now is as I mentioned, Uniswap is deployed on Roostok, and for me, Uniswap is one of the best protocols I found in DeFi. Compound, Aave, this kind of protocol makes really interesting protocols.
Well, I'll be very interested to see what you end up taking a look at VSC, which is this layer 2 contract system. It's a feeless clearing base layer, so it should be really low fees. And we use the blockchain all the time with 0 fees, and so we when we use our blockchain on Hive, and then we go to use Ethereum or another blockchain, it's so frustrating that you have to provide gas and then you have to wait for and sometimes it fails. On a feeless blockchain like Hive, it works every single time. There's 0 fees, and you just click the button and it's done.
I don't know if you share this information. Again, I'm not the tech guy making any kind of decisions, but I would be really interested to share this with the Roostok friends, founders that are more in this kind of proposals, and ask them what they think about it. Right, yes, but of course, if I can transact for free, it's great. The thing is how the security works and what are the incentive for that.
For sure. Well, one thing's for sure is that they're founded in the same basis. The idea of running smart contracts on layer 2, the idea of in the same way Bitcoin's founded, where it's like no pre-mine, no ICO, there's all that type of stuff going on. No company behind it, so there's no one to call up to shut it down. So interesting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. So
you can incentivize the top nodes with inflation. You don't have to incentive thousands of nodes that really aren't needed. What you really need is probably 20. 10 is actually probably more decentralized than what most people are actually operating with. 20 nodes in consensus with a whack-a-mole backup, meaning if one goes down, it's instantly replaced. That creates competition. Make sure the backups are paid as well. Rotate in backups. You can have a small amount of inflation going to that, so they're guaranteed paid. And then you can have low fees from that because now you don't have to rely on fees. And it just creates and you also can create sinks, right? So you can actually make it deflationary in practice. In theory and in practice, the best way for any security to work is to have inflation and find a way to cause deflation or very, 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 very minimal, like gold-like inflation. Because the good thing about inflation is the validators know they're getting paid directly from the protocol. They don't have to worry about low season, high season, any of these type of things. And as long as you're not having thousands incentivized, which I think is overkill and unnecessary, actually, I think it can cause more harm than good. Really, you want your top performing nodes, right? If you have 1,000, some of them are going to be slow. It's going to slow down the network. They're not really adding that much security. It's just a number in a head. When in practice, 20 lean, mean nodes distributed across the world is more than enough, as long as what's very important is the whack-a-mole backup. That means there's, in theory, infinite nodes, because you can knock all 20 out, 20 are instantly replaced. That makes it very difficult for a nation state to attack, and it makes them deter attacking, because if you do knock out 20, 20 aren't just replaced, 40 come up, right? Because when there's less competition to be in the top, there's more demand, right? So you have a lot more people step up when the protocol is being attacked. It's built in nature that way. So that's how you would do. That's how the security model is with a low fee chain.
Just to add to that as well, Dan, those 20 can act as the oracle, so they can be elected by the community, and instead of having a separate oracle system or a so-called decentralized oracle system, you can just have those 20 people providing the price feed.
Okay, it's very interesting. In our case, there is like these people are staking a lot of governance tokens, so these have an economic value. So if they cheat, if they provide bad price, of course the protocol will be worthless. Now nobody is going to use the protocol, and so their stake will be worth nothing at all. So that's how we thought about running our oracles. It's not, it has a cost, but also they have a lot of tokens stake. They cannot stake it for like 30 days. So again, if they cheat or they go against the protocol, the economic value of the money involved in the governance will be worthless.
Yeah, with coin voting, you need long stake, a long lockup, longish lockup if there's any kind of governance vote, just for the reason you said. It deters that, but it also deters centralized custodians of funds to use funds of their own customers to upgrade the network, which has happened in practice before. It's actually happened. If you have to lock up stake for 3 months or a month, let's say, that's a long time to be in the heat and have to deal with that attack vector. So yeah, I definitely believe if you have any kind of governance at all, the very first step, the very first what we call parameters, very first parameter is to make sure that you have to have skin in the game for X amount of time.
Yeah. But anyway, I will really be interested to learn more about how are you building this.
Sure. Well, one last question before we go. I think it's about time to close it down here. Have you got any interesting use cases that you've seen that are a bit unorthodox that you hadn't thought about, or is people just using it to lock in and use it for DeFi, or is there some of the transactions going on or distribution of this token in unorthodox ways that you hadn't thought of, or other use cases that you're planning to use this for?
Well, it's like we actually want to focus on as little things as possible. And the crazy ideas should come from other people. What we wanted to focus initially was to have a decentralized or as mass trust minimized stablecoin as possible, only backed by Bitcoin. That was the main idea. Then we needed to build the liquidity token, and then we needed to build the decentralized governance, and then there was no oracles in Rostock, and if you go and see how Chainlink works, it's completely centralized at the end because there is no way to run a price feeder if you are not allowed by Chainlink Corporation. So we don't like it any oracles running, so we build our own oracles. But it's not because we wanted to build that. And actually, we built a decentralized token exchange that I did not mention. It's very interesting, but we are not focused on that. So again, there is several ways doing these tokens and other stuff, but we want this crazy stuff to be built on top of Money on Chain or with these tokens. We just want to focus on doing one thing right, which is pretty tough.
No, it's excellent. It's excellent, actually. I mean, one of the things we got into crypto and really because we run a video application called 3Speak TV, and that's what we want to focus. And we really like the idea that there's other people that focus on running the base layer chain, and we don't have to worry about that too much. Although we are involved in that as well, but it's like we don't have to be as an application. We actually got in through the application side, and then ended up getting involved in the infrastructure. But that was kind of our choice. So it is very important that you guys are able to focus on running that base layer really, really well, and then let other wacky, crazy people come up with the use cases, I guess.
Yeah, we know some use cases, as I mentioned. You can do the tokens, use the tokens right now. You can provide liquidity tokens as collateral and taking a loan. So that this is crazy stuff. And you can provide these tokens. This is common now, but been doing liquidity pools. You can do it leverage trading on different protocols already deployed on Roofstock. So there is definitely there is a lot of applications, and there is more application coming. And I have seen some other really interesting stuff on other networks that plan to come to Roofstock. But again, what we want to focus is on having a really hard peg stablecoin, because that is one of the things I have not really focused on that. But one of the really things that are different between Money on Chain and other stablecoins are that the dollar on chain has a hard peg at the level of the smart contract. If you have 100 million of dollar on chain, the peg, of course, you can exchange it in a secondary market at any moment at a different price, but you can operate against the contract, and you can mint $1 million or redeem 100 million at $1 for each token. So having that is not that we depend on a secondary market to do that, and it's a hard peg. That is something else.
Yes, that's a massive deal. That, like, we have a similar thing on Hive in that our stable coin, okay, it's backed by the social activity of the protocol, really, and backed by the apps that are staking the token and their network effect. But the stable coin is minted on layer 1 next to the main governance token on the same layer. So what it means is that you have your own, you don't need even to have a DEX. You know, you don't need to have an exchange. You can do all of that internally on the base layer, and it maintains a massive defense against attacks on sovereignty of the ecosystem. So it sounds to me like you've got a very similar thing there.
Yeah, I need to understand more how your protocol works.
Well, it's not ours. It's not ours. There's no. I mean, it's just Hive. We're just users. We just believe in free speech. You know. We don't own. We're not owners or CEOs or anything like that. We just we're all the CEOs, I guess.
I met some of your community members in Argentina in La BitConf. You have a very strong community. I'm very surprised. And actually, when you contact me, I Hive, and I know some people, and I have some hardcore. Well, you've been in Bitcoin Embassy with Andres BTC.
Yeah. Did you see that video?
Yes. Lorena and Andres are very good friends.
They're great. The toxic Maxi, but he's a really nice guy.
He's a very nice guy, and he likes Wiki. So
no, we had a great chat with those guys, and we had a great time. I also know there's a lot of skepticism around altcoins. You know, people want to do everything, and this is actually interesting for me to find out from you, because you're one of the early Bitcoiners that decided we've got to draw a line here and part ways from pure Bitcoin maximalism and go into separate tokenomic systems that allow us to scale Bitcoin and make it more sovereign because of the direction Bitcoin's going in if it remains a maximalist system. And so I'm assuming that you've had a lot of pushback from and issues from lots of people all over the industry with them saying, what are you doing? You're building an altcoin. You're a shitcoiner, you know, and everything like that. Whereas in reality, I think to me, Bitcoin fills a portion of the digital freedom issue, but it doesn't solve all the issues, and we need to have separate side systems that help, you know.
Well, I'm open to everything, so I'm always studying I think there is space for altcoins. I'm a monetary maximalist on Bitcoin for the long term as a store of value. But I think, as I mentioned, we have a token which is called Money on Chain token. This token has an economic value. So I think, but it's different. It's not money. It's something more similar maybe to you can call it security token or whatever. It has an utility. If you hold that, you can run a node and it has an incentive or whatever. If you want to hold Bitcoin, just hold Bitcoin. If you want to provide your money to making money with this system, great. And if you have in Hive some tokenomics that are interesting, and these tokenomics are interesting for holding Hive token or whatever, for me it's fine, because I'm open to economic innovation. I don't think that the only digital money that can exist, and it's not actually I don't need to discuss this right now. There is 20 or I don't know 100,000. I don't know how many tokens exist. Of course, most of them are going to be worthless in 2-3 years, or maybe in 2-3 months. But some of them not. And it's fine for me. It's like, yeah.
I mean, to me, one of the problems that needs to be solved is, how do you distribute these stablecoins to people that don't have any money? You know, and it's like, well, if I don't know if you saw the blog that we did in Bitcoin Embassy in Mexico City, but that tweet that we released was us mining cryptocurrency from making blogs, and then spending that stablecoin with zero fees, spending it, and it instantly transfers and pays the Lightning invoice. So this is a way that we can get stablecoins out to normal people who can't afford to buy Bitcoin on the base layer, you know, and let them get it by doing some economic activity. And then, of course, in the background, you might have seen the tweet, but the post on Hive, Manu's post, who's in the room, shout out to Manu, his post earned like $140. So he spent $40 on the pizza, and then mined $140 from the protocol from people voting for him because they liked the fact that he was using the protocol. You know, this is how you distribute the currency.
Well, it's a way to monetize on social activity, and it could be done. The same could be used, but it's not, because it's not built into the protocol. I think that economic value comes from the Hive community and from usage of the social network that you have built, and that in itself obviously is making value for money.
Right.
For example.
It's the collateral. It's the collateral for the stablecoin, basically. There's an economic value to the community.
But maybe it's the collateral. But sorry.
It's all right.
Maybe I think it's the social network that you are building.
Yes.
And at the end, when I really think that Bitcoin is a social construct, is a social artifact at the end. Bitcoin is not that it's worth because the hash power of the miners and the electricity and whatever. No, it is worth because a lot of crazy people think that this thing has value, and we all agree that this has value. If we all agree that Ethereum has value, maybe there is some technicalities, whatever, but you know, at the end is a social construction.
Sure.
Of course, there is a lot of technical things that adds to that, but again, you can fork Bitcoin and have exactly the same technical thing. If we all agree that now this fork is the real Bitcoin, that fork is going to be, because technically it will be the same. You follow me? If every Bitcoin miner mines the other one, and all those control the other chain, well, now it's going to be the different chain, and it's a social contract.
Excellent. Well, for the recording and for the people in the room, let's wrap up the call here. It's been great talking to you, Manu. I really appreciate it, and it's really nice to hear a guy like you who's got a very open mind and looking to, you know, adopt different solutions and build different solutions that help Bitcoin and help the community and help digital freedom. Ultimately, I think is what we're all trying to do here. So yeah, great to speak to you, Manu. I'm looking forward to seeing how we can play around with a stable coin of yours and maybe integrate it into what we're doing as well. I think there's potentially something there where it gets used as a gateway, maybe. It could be really cool. So, yeah, pleasure speaking to you. Can you tell the audience what's next, what you're doing, or where they can find you?
Well, next, regarding money on chain is, as I mentioned, it is decentralized. So whatever the community votes, proposals, we from Meme Labs, we are building a new protocol which is called Flip Money. Now it's in testnet. Flip Money is like probably the next version if the community votes for implementing these changes on money on chain. But Flip Money initially will have it's going to be a multi-peg stablecoin protocol. So you will have peso Argentino on chain, sol peruano on chain, Colombian peso on chain, real Brazilian real on chain, backed by Bitcoin at the end. So the idea is to make to enable forex, decentralized forex, backed by Bitcoin. So it is like a second version, and probably we will bring all this stuff to money on chain to build euro on chain, won on chain.
This is very interesting. So I know we've got to end the call, but maybe this is for another time. But this idea of we can put all the stocks on the chain in this way, in this exact way, right?
Yeah.
But then you're going to have different forces because there's obviously centralized parties who are after that infrastructure. You hear Larry Fink often talk about this, and he clearly wants his centralized projects to mint these tokens and trade stocks and forex between each other. Whereas in reality, what I want to see, I just want to see that whatever protocol we use, the background infrastructure is decentralized and it isn't run by a centralized party. Right. Once we have that, we have a right to trade, we have a right to transact, and then it can't be shut down, and it's good. But of course, the threat and the thing that people need educating about, I think that a lot of people don't understand because they're all focused on token prices going up, is who's running the infrastructure? Is it going to be Larry Fink, or is it going to be guys like you who are actually probably going to build a decentralized protocol? Yeah.
I think there is going to be alternatives. Some people is going to be fine using Tether or Larry Fink, Larry stuff, and other people is going to look for trust minimized solutions because they cannot afford to trust someone else.
Exactly.
The real reason why we built this is as I'm Argentine. I've been stolen by my governments, different governments, several times. Me, my father, my grandmother, everyone. So I cannot trust Tether. I think Paolo Androino is a nice chap. And maybe Bitfinex is great company, but I cannot trust them because it's not only that I cannot trust them. I cannot trust the US government because maybe they are going to block Bitfinex or Tether Inc. And most probably they are going to do that. So you saw last week, the Tether was saying we are going to freeze all Venezuelan.
It's a CBDC. It's a CBDC. It's exactly what we're against.
But it is a CBDC already. It is a CBDC. Because, and it's not because they are bad people. It's because if they don't do that, they are going to go to jail.
Yeah.
Today, Wasabi announced that they are stopping the mixers. And why are they stopping the mixers? Because Samurai went to jail.
Yeah.
So,
This is the point, but the beauty of this technology, and it's great hearing guys like you, Manu, because there are still guys out there, and I think there's going to be more and more of us, I would like to say we're included in this, it's people that are genuinely trying to figure out everything they can to build truly decentralized infrastructure and decentralized projects where they don't own any part of it. And they can't be called up to be arrested. And even if they are called up and arrested and locked away or whatever, there's nothing they can do to change the protocol. So it becomes a moot point, and that's the power of this technology that we can really benefit from. And a lot of people have failed at that. It doesn't make them bad people, but they failed at it, unfortunately.
It's exactly what we built. Today, if they arrest me because they don't like what I built, the protocol is going to run. I cannot stop it. If I want to close it, I cannot stop it. So,
exactly.
If you don't like it, okay, I will go to jail. Luckily, I'm not American, so well, they can get you anywhere in the world. But whatever, I don't know.
You seem like the type of guy that would do.
I already built it.
You seem too friendly for that, Manu. You're too friendly and nice. I'm sure even if you did go to jail, you'd end up being the most popular man in jail anyway. God forbid you do, though. Right? All right. Well, appreciate it. It's great speaking to you. Great touching base with you. I also want to give a shout out to Manu from Hive Cuba because he recommended that we speak to each other, and it's been a great conversation. And maybe have many more in future. I'm sure we'll touch base again at some point. And if you can drop the video that you filmed, if you filmed anything to us, then we'll get that edited into a video as well, and we'll publish it and send it to you.
I need to admit that
it's okay. You've got a nice profile picture, so we'll just use that instead.
Perfect. So sorry with all this connection problem at the beginning.
Yeah, I know. It was all over the place. Apologies from our side because it was all over the place, but all good. All right, Manu. Very good. Thank you. And we'll speak to you soon. Looking forward to more meeting and speaking to more guys like you in the industry because we sure need them for sure.
Pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Later, Manu.
Bye. Bye.